shortly. So, Michael, if we could get started with roll call.
Alderman Bob Bauman.
Here.
Mr. Joel Brennan.
Here.
Mr. Grady Crosby.
Here.
Mr. Joel Brennan.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
Really soft.
Really soft. Hold on one second, everybody. I'm going to turn up the volume in the room.
Morning.
Hi. Why don't you say your name for that? Hi, Brian. Morning.
Michael, can you try it again?
Mr. Joel Brennan.
Here?
I did hear.
You acknowledge, but it's still very faint. Yeah.
We'll work on it. Might let's continue with
I think I moved
Okay.
it all the way
Senator
up.
Alberta Darling. Mr. Mark Flaherty.
Here.
Representative Kalen Haywood. Alderman Cavalier Johnson.
Present.
Senator Latanya Johnson.
Here.
Mr. James Cantor.
Here.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Greg Marcus. Mayor Dennis McBride. Ms. Joanne Seeger.
Last night, midnight.
Representative Joe Sanfilippo. Ms. Aicha Sawa.
Here.
Mr. Omar Sheikh.
Here.
Alderwoman Jocasta Demerica. We have a
Great. I think, are we better with the volume? Okay, great. With that, the first order of business is the discussion, any discussion and approval of meeting minutes from our June 18th, 2021 board meeting. Any discussion on the board minutes? All right, I would ask for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Senator Johnson.
And the volume is back. All in favor of approval of the meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. Meeting minutes from June 18th are approved. Our next order of business is our financial report from Steve Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. Today's update will include a review of our year-to-date actual results through June, our income statement projections through year-end, and a quick look at our projected December 31 cash positions. Generally, the news is positive year-to-date, and we do remain optimistic about our event programming throughout the remainder of 2021 and our continued ability to generate positive cash flow from operations. But before we get into the financial statements today, just a few items to note. Number one, we have officially kicked off our internal budget process for the 2022 fiscal year. As we sit here today, our event calendar for 2022 is robust, and we look forward to presenting a budget at the October board meeting that shows year-over-year growth, building upon the recovery we've seen in 2021. Number two, Marty and I have had some recent conversations with our financial advisor, John Meehan with R.W. Baird, as well as Dave Erdman, Capital Finance Director for the state of Wisconsin, regarding a possible refunding of existing district debt, notably the Series 2013 debt that financed the renovation of the Miller High Life Theater. Current market conditions are favorable for the district, and there's an opportunity to save money on our annual debt service. To be clear, this transaction is wholly unrelated to the expansion and is also unlike the refinancing transaction we executed in June of 2020, which served as a key component of our COVID mitigation plan and included borrowing new money. Should management determine that moving forward with this refinancing is in the best interest of the district, we would ultimately seek approval from the board, authorizing management to execute a transaction when market conditions met certain requirements, similar to the type of authorizing resolution the board passed in April of 2020. The purpose of sharing this with you today is simply to make the board aware that this opportunity is out there, and management could be back soon, perhaps as early as next month, requesting authorization to move forward. Certainly, as we get to the point of making a recommendation, we would be prepared to show the financial impact of such transaction, including estimated reductions to the district's annual debt service payments. Are there any questions on that? Okay, so let's dive into the financials. If I could direct your attention to the first page of the 2021 income statement, which is page 6 of the board packet and has column IDs A, B, C, and D at the top. You'll find a comparison of our year-to-date actuals in column B relative to our year-to-date budget column A. I'll start at line 29, where you'll see our net operating income is substantially better than budget by about $3.8 million through June. There's a couple factors driving this positive variation. Number one, as we've previously shared with the board, the vaccine clinic was a major driver of our improvement relative to budget and really sustained our organization through the first quarter and a half of 2021. We also hosted more graduations, dance competitions, and volleyball tournaments than we had budgeted, with some of those occurring even under the capacity restrictions that were in place earlier this year. The second driver of positive variation is on the expense side. You'll see year-to-date, on line 28, column C, we're tracking better than budget by about $346K. Even with the increase in event activity, we're seeing lower than expected utility charges, which is line 18, and less than expected spend in repairs and maintenance, line 26. Even as we begin to see improvement in market conditions, we continue to doggedly manage our operating expenses and look for opportunities to do more with less. Line 35, not surprisingly, year-to-date tax revenues are down relative to budget and further supports our rationale for proactively adjusting down our tax revenue forecast in January, which we'll talk about more in just a minute. Line 39, you'll see the Bucks District ticket surcharge revenue is down to budget by about $54K, and again, in just a moment, I'll comment on the year-end projections for this category. Line 66, non-operating expenses are over budget by about $6.6 million. As we've noted to the board really since January, this negative variance is solely the result of the bond interest expense associated with the expansion debt service, which was not budgeted for. And again, this makes Marty cringe every time we review these statements because it really does mask the positive progress we've made in our business that has produced favorable financial results. Notwithstanding the bond interest expense, we've held the line on expenses in almost every other category year to date. One line item to note, the Visit Milwaukee expense, line 50, has a positive variance to budget of about $500,000. That's largely a result of the decrease in expected tax revenue collections relative to budget, which is a direct driver of their annual payment. Overall, line 70 shows we're down from budget by $3.3 million. However, excluding the bond interest expense, we'd be showing a positive variance of almost $5 million. Turning to page 7 of the packet of the income statement, and this has column IDs E, F, G, and H at the top, you'll see a comparison of our annual budget, column E, to our projected annual forecast, column F. Drawing your attention to line 29, column G, you'll see net operating income variance to budget is projected to be a positive $4.5 million at year end. This is about $1.1 million better than the forecast we presented to you at the June board meeting. There are two primary drivers of this positive variation. Number one is the continued improvement in event activity, as we've already discussed. And number two, the district was awarded earlier this month approximately $983,000 in grant money through the Shuttered Venues Operator Grant Program administered by the Small Business Administration, which is driving the significant variance in line 13 of the income statement. We applied for this grant in April, along with other live venue organizations such as Summerfest and the Pabst Theater Group. However, due to our legal entity status as a government municipality, we were in the last grouping of venues to be given consideration for grant money, thus had previously not forecasted to receive this revenue. This is a big win for our organization, and it's going to help accelerate our recovery out of this pandemic. You'll notice some additional variation in lines 1 through 28 caused by improved and increased event activity from last forecast, of which the Beyond Van Gogh event is contributing significantly, and I believe Marty will talk more about that in his CEO update. Scrolling down to line 35, tax revenues, we continue to maintain our January forecast number. While the May results significantly beat our forecast estimate, and we just received the June results earlier this week that also beat our forecast estimate by about 15%, in large part, we believe, due to the Bucks playoff run. We do want to be careful about not over-projecting revenue here, only to have to walk back some of those numbers later in the year should economic conditions in third and fourth quarter prove to be unfavorable. Line 39, Bucks district ticket surcharge. We are projecting to be down about $50K relative to budget, which is actually a pickup from our last board meeting of about $210K. The Bucks playoff run was certainly a contributing factor to that increase, as well as some additional event announcements from Fiserv since June, including a Harry Styles concert in November and a college hockey tournament in late December. Not represented in these numbers is the James Taylor concert announcement that was made earlier this week, which is scheduled for December and will provide some additional pickup for us. As for non-operating expenses, you can see many of the categories on lines 42 through 65 remain at budget. I think these estimates are probably a bit conservative at this time, and we'll likely see some expense savings in these categories by year end. As we sit here today, management does have a positive view of the income statement, while we're showing an overall negative variance to budget, as shown on line 70 of about $15.4 million. All of that and then some is driven by that bond interest expense variance, as well as a decrease in tax revenue collections, which again masks the continued improvement we do see in our business operations. Moving on to the cash flow projections, which are pages 10 and 11 of the board packet. These have been updated to incorporate improved event projections, actual tax revenue results, and the grant revenue pickup. For both the unrestricted cash, again, those are the monies we use to fund operations, and the restricted cash, those monies we use to pay down debt service. Management has no concerns about its ability to meet its obligations through the rest of the calendar year, and really certainly through the first quarter of 2022, as we believe the cash balances in both funds remain in a relatively healthy position. One last note today, we are closely monitoring the status of the Delta variant and its potential impact on our industry and our business. To date, it's not impacted our business. Quite to the contrary, actually. Marty will be providing an update on our booking activity here in just a moment, but we believe we are prepared should conditions deteriorate. Fortunately, we do have a playbook to reference that has been developed over the past 18 months that we can execute if necessary to keep the district operating, including but not limited to tapping into our operating reserve monies held by the trustee. Our hope is that these mitigation measures aren't necessary. And again, we've not experienced any loss of event activity to warrant such action, but it is a situation we'll continue to monitor and update the board accordingly. Mr. Chairman, that is my financial update today.
Any questions for Steve? All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is Director Crosby. Hey, Steve, just a question with regard to, I guess, procedurally as to how the ticket surcharges work. Do we recognize that revenue once a ticket is sold for an event? And if that's the case, do we also get that revenue when tickets are sold, like, you know, in advance? Or is it as events occur? Just wondering.
Yeah, thank you, Grady. That ticket revenue is recognized once that event actually occurs.
Senator Darling?
Yes, thank you very much. Sorry to be late. Had a little trouble with parking and getting in, but that's okay.
We all do. Way to go, Marty.
Thank you.
We're expanding, now we can't park. That's great.
That's okay. I finally found it. But I want to say I'm really impressed with the management of this operation. It's been a really tough time, and I think you've really done well to navigate these difficult times. And I want to thank you for this. And I see John Yingling is here from State Fair, and State Fair had a really great season too. I think it bodes well for our city and state for the now and in the future. And actually, the state was, the projections of income were such, but the actuals were way over the projections, which I think shows a really good sign for our state. So let's be positive about things that are happening. And thank you for your management. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator.
Great. Good.
Hey, Jim, can I ask a question?
Yes, you can, Joel.
Steve, just wondering, with the shuttered venue grant, was that a portion of what was applied for? Was that the entirety of what the district sought? Because I know as that program moved on, those who were later, some of them got only a portion of it. I just wanted to know, kind of what was it that was sought versus what was received by the district?
Yeah, thank you, Joel. That was the entire amount we were seeking. Based on the restrictions of the grant program, our request had to be limited to those operations that occurred in our theater, as opposed to also the convention center and the arena.
Great, thanks.
Anybody else with any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, just one last.
Yeah, sure,
follow-up
Grady.
question.
Yep, Grady, go ahead.
Sure, Steve, just a follow-up question to that. Are you able to get visibility into advanced sales in order to, kind of inform our planning? So for instance, you said that we don't recognize that those surcharges until the events occur, but we know that, some of these events are pre-sold even a couple of years in advance, especially for, some venues or some operations that have like season tickets. So are you able to see that and see the price increases in order to inform you as to what should go in our budgets?
Yeah, thank you, Grady. We, at the beginning of our budget cycle, we'll compare notes with the Bucks about the upcoming season and talk through with them some high-level projections. We don't have direct access into their advance ticket sales right now. I think if we had more regular conversations with the Bucks, it might be something they'd be open to sharing, but it's not something historically we've sought after. We've found our projections, actually non-COVID years, to be pretty close, considering the regularity of a Bucks season at Marquette. It's the concert programming, Grady, that has some variation to it, but on average, I think our estimates have been pretty good in that regard.
Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Great. Anything else? Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. Well done. All right, Marty, our CEO update, please.
Good morning, all. Thank you for attending in person, and those of you attending virtually, appreciate your time commitment today. Following up on what Steve was talking about on the event activity side, we have seen an increase in event activity this year for programming for this year. Since our June board meeting, we've added 3 concerts to the Miller High Life Theater for this year, a public ticketed sporting event into the Panther Arena. The Admirals have announced their hockey season, which will provide us with 12 home hockey games in the balance of 21. 2 consumer shows, ticketed consumer shows in the Wisconsin Center, 14 meetings in the Wisconsin Center, and 1 religious event. We know that UWM will be playing their men's basketball games in our building this coming season, although we've yet to receive their non-conference and conference schedules. Expect them within the next 15 to 30 days at most. We are in discussions with the Wave to bring their season back to the Panther Arena come November. They did not play last year. We were out there meeting with them a week and a half ago and expect to continue those discussions and hopefully reach an agreement in the next 30 days to bring 12 home games for the 21-22 season into the Panther Arena. Since June, we've added the balance of the Admirals hockey schedule in the Panther Arena, 26 games, 3 concerts in the Miller High Life Theater for 22, 2 dance competitions in the theater for 22, 3 special events meetings, 2 volleyball tournaments in the Wisconsin Center, 9 meetings for the Wisconsin Center. Tripoli Circus is back at the Panther Arena this year, as is First Robotics. As of this morning, ticket sales for the Beyond Van Gogh immersive experience we're over 112,000 tickets sold for that event. We are on pace to sell over 150,000 tickets for that event, which since our meeting has been extended through October 31st of this year. Given the current sales activity and my optimism that we'll achieve at least another 38,000 tickets sold, this event could yield us in the high 6 figures in net income, which is a significant amount of money in any year, but in a year where this event wasn't budgeted, it could really help us encroach into the deficit that we have anticipated to lose and lessen that. So this has been a real godsend. And events of this nature we are looking at. While these events have been going on successfully in Europe for years, this is really the first time an event of this nature has hit the States. And there are a number of production companies, promoters looking at expanding and going into other types of immersive experiences. We need to make sure we're selective. And as I said in the committee meetings, while this event has been very successful for us, we've been able to take advantage of a negative situation. And the negative situation is that we have lost meetings and conventions that had otherwise booked that convention space, which is why it's been available for such a long period of time. I don't see this becoming a staple of our business, but it certainly has been terrific for this year, and where we can work this in, especially in those calendar segments that are soft for the convention business, this could be a tremendous piece of product for us to be going after year after year. As Steve mentioned about the Delta variant, thus far we've only, excuse me, we've only received a couple of inquiries on our masking policy as it relates to events, looking to see what we're requiring when they come in. The bigger concern thus far has been, have we had to implement any capacity restrictions? And thus far we have not. I think that if in fact moving forward there is a mandate for masks, while it will be impactful, it would be nowhere as impactful as if we have to deal with capacity restrictions. So at this point, there have been no discussions whatsoever about any type of capacity restrictions, and we're hopeful that through increased vaccination, that won't be the case. But fortunately, we have not lost any events, and we've, as Steve indicated, we've seen a tremendous increase in event activity for the balance of 21 and continue so for 22 and beyond. On August 3rd, we reinstated the requirement for all front of house and back of house staff to wear masks while they're on the property. We are not requiring guests to wear them if they are fully vaccinated. We are requesting those who are not fully vaccinated, though, to wear masks. As you all know by now, both Summerfest and the Pabst Theater Group will be requiring attendees to show either proof of vaccination or proof of a negative COVID-19 test within 72 hours prior to a concert on their property. The Pabst Theater Group has requested that for the 3 shows they have booked into our building for the remainder of 21, that we adhere to their admission protocols, which we have agreed to do so. They have concerts booked here on October 22nd, November 13th, and December 4th. The staff and I are currently studying implementing vaccination requirements or proof of negative tests for the events at the theater. Have not made that determination yet, but expect to do so in the next 2 to 3 weeks at most. Like most other venues within the area, we have joined a coalition of the regional entertainment venues and restaurants promoting and encouraging people to get vaccinated against this virus. Changing subjects, I'm very excited to finally be able to share with you what I've been alluding to for the past several months, and that is that we have finalized and signed an agreement with a firm called Legends to represent us for the naming rights for the convention center and work with us in obtaining major corporate partnerships. Founded in 2008, Legends is a premium experiences company with 6 divisions operating worldwide: global planning, global hospitality, global partnerships, which encompasses naming rights and sponsorships, global merchandise, and global technology solutions. Currently, Legends works with marquee clients, including professional sports, collegiate, attractions, entertainment, and conventions and leisure establishments. Notable clients include the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Yankees, AT&T Stadium, Allegiant Stadium, LA 2028, SoFi Stadium, the Los Angeles Rams, University of Notre Dame, Orlando Magic, the Coliseum in Las Vegas, University of Wisconsin, and the Renaissance Convention Center in Memphis. This is a tremendous organization for us to be associated with. They have global contacts. It is the type of organization that I truly believe 3 years ago, if we had reached out to them, as several firms of this nature were not interested in discussing representing us for naming rights. I don't believe Legends would have 3 years ago, but I think the success that we've showed as a destination and the support we've given major events really has helped provide credibility to our organization. And Legends wanting to do business with us, the president of the Global Partnerships Division, when in negotiation with him, said, look, we are looking, we've done every other hospitality market. We have not had a tremendous inroad because we haven't focused on it, on the convention center business, and we feel that the Wisconsin Center expansion really will provide them with a foray into this market. So I'm thrilled to have them represent us.
A question on that, perhaps?
Sure.
A couple of questions. Number one, you say other firms or most firms in this business did not even want to deal with us?
Not most. There were some that we reached out to get meetings and talk, and they said, you know what, I didn't take it as a slap in the face against Milwaukee or against Wisconsin as much as it was they had they had enough on their plate and didn't see this as an opportunity to worth expanding their range.
Okay, where is this firm headquartered?
They've got offices in Denver, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago. They do have a representative who's in Madison who works with the University of Wisconsin. So they have offices all over the world.
Were any local firms considered?
Not for this. Bob, we went through this, you may remember back in January, we talked about an agreement that we entered into with Impression. There really aren't any firms locally that have the type of reach to put together a naming rights package of this magnitude.
And what's our deal with them, or can't you say that?
Oh, I can say that we're paying them, I prefer not to give the specifics of the dollar figure, but we're paying them a monthly retainer versus a percentage of what the actual sale becomes of the naming rights package.
Okay.
Staying with advertising and sponsorships for a moment, one of the things that we had started working on last January, that's January of 2020, before we got hit with COVID, was identifying that we had a tremendous opportunity with the expansion, and that historically we have done very little to maximize our sponsorship opportunities. To that point, we began a recruiting process January of last year, interviewed a lot of people from all over the country, local and throughout the country, and we have made a job offer, and he has accepted it. His name is Steve Harms. He will be joining us on Monday of next week as our Vice President of Corporate Partnerships. He began his career working for the Milwaukee Bucks, went on to work for the NBA League office in New York, was Vice President of Marketing and Sales for the Detroit Lions, Vice President of Corporate Partnerships with the Ilitch Group, which owns the Tigers and the Red Wings. Steve is a native to Milwaukee, earned his Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Wisconsin, La Crosse. So I will make sure he is in attendance at the next board meeting so he can meet you all, but this is a tremendous hire for us, someone who's very immersed in our business, and I know is going to be worth his weight in revenue as he begins. Speaking about staff, last Friday, Sarah Mayo, who is on vacation this week, otherwise she would be here. Sarah, as I hope all of you know, as our Vice President of Marketing and Communications, was honored by the Milwaukee Business Journal as a Chief Marketing Officer of the Year in a ceremony last Friday. So we were there to support her and really appreciate the contributions she's made to this organization. As Steve mentioned, we're the recipient of a $983,000 grant. On August 3rd, Governor Evers announced that a $10 million of the American Rescue Plan funds would be used to provide grants to local governments and tourism entity nonprofits for tourism-related investment projects that help promote, maintain, and bolster Wisconsin's tourism industry, and that have a substantial capital component. Grants of up to $3.5 million will be awarded to regional entities through a competitive application process to eligible infrastructure projects such as convention centers, travel infrastructure, public and nonprofit attractions, and others. We are waiting for the application to come out, but have done a lot of work in identifying several infrastructure capital projects that we would like to get done that are not at all part of or connected to the expansion project. The 3 projects that we have identified to seek funding for is to replace the existing 23-year-old roof of the convention center, $500,000 towards 3 elevator refurbishments in the existing facility, and $1 million towards repairs to the loading dock that is having some concrete and steel concerns that just need to be repaired. Mr. Chairman, I have a number of other things I would like to address in closed session, but for now, those are my comments for open session. If there are no other questions, what I'd like to do is introduce the group to talk about the expansion.
Sure. Are there any other questions? Thanks for the invite. Just honor Sarah, too, for the lunch. That was great. Are there any other questions for Marty?
We invited, but you were on the golf course,
Yeah,
and
right.
therefore,
Great, no, thank you. With that said, the board may convene. In
we're not
closed-
going to, I won't go to closed session yet. I want to introduce I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I would like to have Mike Abrams from CA Icon. He's going to give us an update on the expansion, the timeline, talk about the first quarterly inclusion report that we have for the group. And then in light of the condominium collapse in Surfside, Florida last month, we've asked Mike Vogel from Graph Engineering to provide a high-level overview of the structural integrity of our project and making us all comfortable that what happened there really can't happen here. So, Mike?
Good morning. Thanks everybody again. We are excited to announce we actually started the project. We started the project a few weeks ago, so you should see and hear around town now that we're making progress out there. We are doing our discovery, we're calling it our discovery work out there, our due diligence on site, stripping the old asphalt parking lot, moving the foundation to a concrete slab at the old convention center, and surveying the existing deep foundations, piles that are underground. Many months ago, believed that was the right direction to start early, understand exactly what is existing under there, and if we need to make adjustments, we'll have the time to make some adjustments on the structural design before it impacts our schedule. So we are currently demoing. We have a utility contractor on board as well. It's going to start underground utilities here in about a month or so, and we are also planning the removal demo of the sky bridge that connects over to the Hyatt Hotel. We are tentatively planning that to occur in late September. With that, Bell R. Phillips will be shut down for a few weeks between Wells and Kilbourne for that activity. Our groundbreaking, official groundbreaking for the project is still in Q4. We're still pinpointing the exact time frame on that, working with the district to determine that exact date, but that should be hopefully announced here shortly. We are starting also new foundation work tentatively around early November with our new deep foundation system, pile driving activities as well. Our design development plans were delivered this week to the team. Gilbane Smith currently has those in hand and is currently providing a budget update here in about 4 or 5 weeks. So we'll continue to finalize our plans for the new concrete and steel structures and building enclosures with 2 more complete contract document packages that come out later this fall, one in October and one in early December. That's going to be followed up next year by a mechanical electrical set of drawings in early January, followed a few months later by a complete finishes package. The entire team, we're also heading down a path we're excited about to where our current structural engineering firm, Grafe Engineering, and Mike Vogel, is taking on the scope of work to finalize steel connection detailing and shop drawing scope of work, which is traditionally performed by the steel fabricator. Our steel fabricator is not going to be on board till later this year, early 22, but thinking ahead to all the advantages of going down this path, we thought this was the right thing to do. Some of the advantages of doing it like that, material orders can be placed immediately upon award of contract, thus saving months of additional steel detailing. We'll have leverage and flexibility in deciding when we lock in the steel material pricing, and reduces the amount of potential cost exposures for the project as well. Also, with the current lead times for many materials, but in particular steel, this will just greatly increase our ability to purchase on time and early and assure we get material here on time. We've also continued to have focus meetings with various departments of the city, with the City Department of Neighborhood Services. We've had several follow-up code related phone calls with them. That's going very well. We've had follow-up calls with the Department of Public Works regarding our air rights discussions and work within the right-of-way. And we also had a follow-up call with the Director of Sustainability at the city. Sticking to sustainability and renewable energy, we are heading down a direction to utilize portion of the rooftop for solar thermal panels, which provides energy through the UV, mostly for heating water for the building. Our building, our new expansion, is greatly dependent on water and heating water for snow melt systems, for the heating systems, and for domestic water, mostly for the kitchen spaces. We are currently just finalizing payback periods and initial costs and finalizing design. So that's a quick update on the expansion project. Any questions specific to construction?
Senator Darling?
Thank you very much. You alluded to it briefly, but how is the scarcity of materials going to affect the timeline of the project at all?
That's a great question. Something we've been tracking nationwide for really probably the last 12 months, really tracking that down. So first of all, we're blessed to have a pretty long project duration just based on the construction period of over 2 years. So we're looking at everything from making sure we have localized building materials, that we're not getting mostly finished materials from out of the country, and really zeroing in on local materials and availability. We're tracking trends with steel. Steel is it's a material right now that's hard to get, with steel decking, joists, joists and deck, structural steel. The lead times have doubled what is normal in past years. So we're doing everything we can to be proactive, similar to what we're doing with starting the detailing process now, because that takes 3 to 4 months, and we're moving those timelines up. We're also going to be looking at pre-purchasing mechanical equipment, potentially early, looking for storage solutions, just making sure that we get materials here in town and on site, whether it be storage here within the district somewhere or off-site. But we're looking at everything as far as lead times. That's top of our minds right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, so I want to bring up Carla Cross, who has presented before to the board in past meetings. She's our business inclusion manager. Just going to give a quick update on our first quarter inclusion and findings.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Carla Cross of Cross Management Services, and we're the inclusion consultant or inclusion monitor for business on the project. The first quarter report that we're working on the first quarterly report is for the quarter ending June 30th, 2021. And it really covers mainly just professional services, which is design, testing, legal, the inclusion monitors, and financial services. And for the contracts that have been awarded for those services, The total is really 31%, which is the requirement, including 1% disabled veteran businesses, 25% MBEs, 5% WBEs, so the total is 31%. And so far, the projects are meeting that goal. The next report will be for the quarter ending September 30, 2021, and on that report, we will include some construction data for contracts that have been awarded for construction, as well as workforce information. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't get off mute quick enough. So you said 31% is the goal for quarter number one, Carla?
Yes.
And in that 31%, that's of total spend during the quarter?
That's not the spend, that's the awarded contracts for the quarter. For the spend, it's 13% of the spend has been with targeted businesses.
13% of the spend. What, do you have a goal for the spend?
No, well, we measure the goal mainly based on awarded contracts because the spend is going to go up and down throughout the process. So the spend is just how much has been spent or paid to design firms, professional services firms, and then how much of that has been spent with the targeted businesses.
But isn't the spend what the MBEs and WMBs count on the most? Because, I mean, when you say percentage of contracts, how does that relate to money in people's pockets is what I'm really getting to. And so to me, the spend number is more indicative of what we're spending with MBEs as opposed to what's been promised in the future in terms, because that can change as well. And do we have a goal around the spend?
No, we do not have a goal around the spend, mainly because the spend is going to change as the project moves forward and where the targeted firms are providing services. So, for example, the spend for all the financial services has been completed, but the spend for the design is not going to be completed until really the project is complete because some of the design firms are going to be involved in potentially construction management. So they will be going throughout the whole process. So, and then even for the inclusion monitors, our contracts is throughout the whole process. So it's
Understood, Carla, but at the end of the day, you're saying at the end of the day, at the end of the project, when it's all said and done, we still won't have a goal around how much we actually spent with MBEs and WMBs.
At the end of the day, when the project is complete, the spend will be 31%, at least 31% of the project will be spent, of the dollars that are spent will be with targeted firms.
Okay. Let me ask you this too, with regard to the percentages right now. You said we're on track. Of that 31% for the first quarter, you said inclusion services are included within this number right here. Of that 31%, what percentage does that take up, if you will? Does that represent?
I will have to get back to you to let you know exactly how much the inclusion services is, but it's a small, well, I wouldn't say a small percentages. The total amount of contracts that have been awarded is $7.6 million. And the two inclusion consultants amounts are $290,000 and $272,000. So it's over $500,000 of the $7.6 million.
Okay, gotcha. And can you say generally whether these WMBs also are local companies or most are not?
21 are from the state of Wisconsin, and 6 are from outside. 5 are in Illinois, in Cook County, and 1 is in Butler County, Ohio. But they're all certified by the state of Wisconsin.
Okay, thank you, Carla.
Okay. Any other questions?
Chair,
Yes.
can we get these reports, the June 30, the September 30th? Can we get the reports when they come out?
Yeah, you can. We're providing them to Marty and Steve and staff, and they can distribute them to me. Yeah.
Marty, can you just send it out to the board?
So,
Yeah.
everyone,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to bring up Michael Vogel. He's principal with Grafe Engineering, great engineering firm, structural, and he's going to give a brief update.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to be with you all today. Again, Mike Vogel with Grafe. I'm currently leading the structural design for the expansion project. I want to take the opportunity to tell you how much fun the design team's having doing this project. These projects are rare, they're important, and they're exciting for professionals like myself, so thanks. Mike and Marty asked me to come talk about a little bit the Surfside collapse in Miami. That project is still under forensic investigation. I don't believe that those findings are out. Grafe's not involved in those forensic investigations. There's some consensus building in our industry about speculation about why the failure occurred. I think it sounds like it's coalescing around a combination of perhaps bad detailing, older, out-of-date design codes, deferred maintenance, and then really a project type that lends itself to progressive collapse. So as a condo building that's stacked, as you guys can all imagine, has a failure below, the likelihood of that pancaking action you saw in those horrific videos can happen. So the Wisconsin Center project is not a condo, right? It's an expansion of a convention center. It's got a lot more redundancy. There's it's not likely that even if there were a failure, that you would see a progressive collapse like you did in Miami. But really, what I think the most important thing is that the team that Marty and put together is really a world-class team. So you have Icon, who reps large projects all over the world like this. He built a design team with UA and TVS and Grafe and others that is really world-class. And projects that are like yours can afford to build those types of teams that really lend itself to high-quality, efficient design. So I can stand here today and tell you that that's not going to happen. We designed the building we're sitting in here 25 years ago. It's in good stead. Grafe's been doing this for a long time, and we're confident that your building's going to last and perform for a long time. So one last thing, because Mike brought it up, the whole Grafe Accelerate thing, the shop drawing piece is very exciting. I think it's going to be exciting for you guys. We'll be in contact with Marty and others. I think this is going to get a lot of sizzle nationally in the industry and really put your project on the map or have a lot of opportunity for your project to get a lot of pubs. So be excited about that. It's really state of the art. It's reinventing how structural engineering is being delivered to the market. It's neat to be a part of something that's brand new and innovative in a very mature market. So thanks for that opportunity as well. With that, I'll take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mike?
Jim, can I make a comment instead of a question?
Absolutely.
This is Joel.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to make sure, because Grafe has been involved with some of the stuff we've been doing at the state as well. It's not just about Sunnyside, but there was on Easter Sunday a portion of a building on the campus at UW-Madison at Van Nuys Hall that fell off, a major concrete decorative piece. That there have been issues at the Humanities Building. There are other buildings in the state portfolio. So, you know, it just speaks to the fact that over time, we need to make sure, and I think the Wisconsin Center District has done this with the existing facility and the other facilities as well, but make sure we're also spending time, attention, and resources on the overall maintenance and the continued focus on capital projects like this. So Grafe has done a great job with the state of Wisconsin. You know, they continue to be supportive and work with us on work that we do, but I just want to make sure that it's not just about the highly publicized things and, you know, where people hear about it nationally. There are things that happen here in the state of Wisconsin, and we are well served to continue to focus on that at the WCD and elsewhere as well. I just wanted to mention that. So appreciate the work that you guys have done with us too, Mike.
Thanks, Joel. yeah, we're involved with the Van Heist repairs now, so appreciate the comments.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Excellent. Mike, thank you. Carla, thank you. All right, with that, the next item is for the board may convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851E for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session and pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851G for purposes of conferring with legal counsel for the district who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The board is expected to reconvene in open session following this agenda item. With that, I would ask for a motion to go to closed session. Moved and seconded. All in favor of going to closed session, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the board will move to closed session. Give us a minute while we clear the room. think we have everybody back. Really, a couple real quick orders of business. Future board meeting dates. Michael or Marty, Mike, you want to go over that? I think we have the rest of the year slotted out, and then we have next year's in your packet or posted as well. We're going to go with, at this point, probably, what would you say, 8 board meetings, not one every month? 7, excuse me. It's in your packet. Go, Michael, if you want to just.
So this next board meeting, September 17th. Next year, there are only 7 board meetings and 7 committee meetings that we have scheduled. If everybody could just look at your personal calendars, your work calendars, to make sure that those dates pretty much jive and work. If they don't, we can always shift the dates. But if you could let me know, hopefully by the next board meeting. I know that the city has their meetings, the state has their meetings as well. If they work, if they don't work, just let me know.
And if there's, just as this year, if there are things that we don't need a meeting, it's always easier to take one off the books than to put one on with the group and everyone's schedules here. So if there's any questions there, please direct them to Michael, Marty, or myself. Last, future board items. I know we have a full slate of things going on with the expansion and the completion of the convention center and other things that are going on, and as dictate, we will add those, but we will always entertain additional discussion items from everyone here on the board, so please voice those now if you have items, or send those over to us. We'll make sure they get on the agenda. Last, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor of adjourning? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. The board meeting for August of 2021 is now adjourned. Thank you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you in September.
See you in September.
Wow, we didn't ask for that.